Welcome back to the conversation. Today, we're talking about the mitochondrial role in neuroimmune issues, namely multiple sclerosis. And I have with me Dr. Terry Wahls. I am so grateful to have you back with me again. I have to say, back in 2018, I produced my first summit. You were one of my featured speakers on that summit. You blew my mind. You blew the mind of all of our viewers. And I'm so grateful to have you back again to carry on this conversation because the impact that you have in the world is massive. So thank you, Terry, for being here.
Oh, thank you for having me.
Yes. Well, let's introduce you to the audience who I don't know how it's possible people don't know you, but just in case somebody viewing now doesn't know you, you are an Institute for Functional Medicine certified practitioner. You're a clinical professor of medicine at the University of Iowa. You actually conduct clinical trials in the setting of multiple sclerosis. And from a functional medicine perspective, and we're going to get into that and talk about it. And I know you have some trials going on that people can get into as well. So we'll make sure that we share that before we finish today. Now, in 2018, you were awarded the Institute for Functional Medicine's Linus Pauling Award, and that's for your contributions in research, clinical care, and patient advocacy. And you're the author of the Wahls Protocol, and also you have a cookbook that goes with that. And you literally are everywhere. You have been such a huge contribution in this space. So thank you for continuing the discussion today.
Hey, thank you for having me.
Yes. Okay. So let's jump right into this because we're going to talk about how poor mitochondrial function drives the development of fatigue. People are here to get more energy. We're going to talk about how it affects mood disorders and disability. Specifically, you specialize in multiple sclerosis and neuroimmune issues. And we know that mitochondria are totally compromised by the way that we live our life in this fast-paced Western world. So first, before we jump into all that, you have a outstanding hero story. You truly do. It's remarkable what you went through in your own multiple sclerosis story. So can you share that real quick? And I think that's a great place to start.
So 20 years ago, walking with my wife, Jackie, a half mile from home, my left leg grows weak. Dragging it, I hobble home. When I see the neurologist, he says, Terry, this could be bad or really, really bad. And so the next 3 weeks, I go through the workups and I hear the words multiple sclerosis. I do my research, see the very best MS center in the United States, see their best physician take the newest drugs. 3 years later, I hear tilt, recline, wheelchair. Now, I also have trigeminal neuralgia. Those electrical face pains have been getting relentlessly worse despite, taking the newest drugs, going to the pain centers. And that's when I decide, am I really doing all that I can? I go back to reading the basic science. I decide that mitochondria are what's driving disability. I create a supplement cocktail that supports my mitochondria, and I feel, a little bit better when I take my supplements. Then I discover a study using electrical stimulation of muscles. I ask my physical therapist, can I try that? He says it's really for athletes. He can grow bigger muscles, but he's not sure my brain can talk to those new, bigger muscles. But he gives me a test session. It hurts a lot, but when it's over, I feel great. He tells me it's because of all of the endorphins released by the electrical stimulation. So we add that to my physical therapy. I discovered the Institute for Functional Medicine. I take their course in neuroprotection. I have a longer list of supplements. And I've already been on the paleo diet after being a vegetarian for 20 years. I've been on the paleo diet for 5 years. But now I have this really big aha. Like, what if I redesign my paleo diet based on all the supplements I'm taking? So it's more research. I get that sorted out. And in December 26, 2007, I start this new diet. Now, for context, at that time, I can not sit up more than 10 minutes. Otherwise, I'm either in bed or in a zero gravity chair with my knees higher than my nose, fully reclined back. And that's how I staff the residents in the resident clinic.
So what I find amazing here, what I've always found incredible about your story is that you came from a professor of medicine, you came from the Western world, and you thought out of the box of there must be something else. There must be another way.
When I was first diagnosed, I read the research. I just got more and more agitated because I saw that MS was a progressive disease, and that within 3 years, most people are not working. And I didn't So I was very agitated, and my family convinced me to stop reading the literature and to go find the very best MS center in the country, see the best person there, and follow their advice. So I gave up all of my control. When
Yeah.
I hit the wheelchair, it's like, well, this isn't working out. I'm going to
Right.
go back to reading the basic science.
Right.
And that was a heavy lift because I'm not a neurologist. I don't have a PhD. And so I'm reading a lot of basic science, relearning. I'm teaching myself uh, basic science, neurochemistry, neurophysiology, and it's a big, heavy lift. So I'm reading a little bit every day over the next 4 years, and it's really interesting. I came to the idea that mitochondria were driving disability for Parkinson's, Alzheimer's, Huntington's, uh, ALS, progressive MS, and I really had only had one relapse, maybe two, in the 7 years that I'd had the MS.
Wow. Take us back to that moment where you were, because I interrupted you. Take us back to the moment where you could only be sitting up for
So
10 minutes. You were
I
just,
can sit up for 10 minutes. Otherwise I'm in bed or in the zero grav chair. And if you read the definition of being bedridden, it is to not sit up longer than 10 minutes.
oh,
Like, holy shit.
wow,
I could
that's a
I
label.
could walk I could walk a few steps using walking sticks, and we were talking about remodeling our house to accommodate my wheelchair inside the house because it was so difficult to get around.
Mhm.
And my boss had just said he was reassigning me to the traumatic brain injury clinic. Yeah, and because I worked at the VA, he could do that anytime. And my only recourse was to say, okay, I'll retire then. 'Cause and when he described the job, I knew I couldn't physically do it. My
Yeah,
wife knew I couldn't do it. And I said, okay, well, I'm going to have to start this new job in January, and either I can do it or I can't, and I finally have to apply for disability.
wow.
And so
It was go time.
it
You
was
got to
go
do
time.
something.
And that's when I added the eSTEM. That's when I came across functional medicine. And I took their course on neuroprotection, the audio files that were synced with the PowerPoint, the big notebook of cases. And I was going to have some brain fog. So it was a lot of biochemistry again, um, longer list of supplements. And that summer I had this big aha. And in retrospect, it's sort of chuckle at how long it took me to have this. Like, what if I redesigned my paleo diet based on all these supplements, all these things that I've identified as important for mitochondrial health, but I redesigned to make sure I'm getting them from the food. I'll still do a paleo diet, but now it's a very structured paleo diet.
Mhm.
I start this new way of eating December 26th. I go to my new job first week of January. The first 2 weeks, I'm just watching from my tilt recline wheelchair with my knees higher than my nose. And then the third week, on that Monday, it's my turn to get up and examine these men and women, write the notes. At the end of the day, I come home and I tell Jackie, well, that wasn't too bad.
Huh.
And then at the end of the week, on Friday, I say, that really wasn't too bad. And at the end of the month, I realize, I think I can do this. And
Mhm.
then at the beginning of February, I tell Jackie, I want to have my meal in a regular chair. So we took away the zero gravity chair. And of course, mind you, I'd been eating, reclined with my knees higher than my nose. And my family was always worried I was going to choke
Choke
and aspirate, and that was a fair concern on their part. So I sat up and I had supper
for the first
sitting
time in how
with
long?
probably 4 years.
Okay, take this in, everyone, right now while you're listening to this. 4 years in a tilt recline chair, and you have this moment where you're eating sitting up.
I'm eating with my family sitting up. And so for 4 years, I couldn't go out to a movie theater. I couldn't go to a restaurant. If we drove up to Wisconsin, we drove with me fully reclined in the front seat with the straps that buckled me in. And so I'm sitting up. for the first time.
Wow.
And then I don't remember when it was in February, but I think later in February, although it might have been March, I mailed a letter by walking down the hallway to mail a letter with my 2 walking sticks. And of course, that stunned everyone because they hadn't seen me do that in about 4 years. And then, I began walking around the hospital, 2 walking sticks. Then I began walking with 1 walking stick. Then I began walking with no walking sticks. And then I began walking around the neighborhood. Now, keep in mind, Laura, because I have a secondary progressive MS, and I was taught in medical school and residency, and by all of my neurologists that when you hit the secondary progressive phase, there is no recovery of function. Functions once lost are gone.
Mhm.
And so, even though I had as part of the adaptation is you let go of the future. You learn to take each day as it unfolds. And so I was still taking each day as it unfolded. I didn't know what any of this stuff meant. I still was not thinking about the future.
Right. And there was, getting your hopes up too would be a painful thing if it didn't pan out.
So then in April, I remember it's probably about mid-April, I'm asking Jackie, do you think I could try riding my bike? Because bike riding was a big thing that my family did. And she said, well, maybe this fall, if things keep going well, we can get your bike out. Because I'd given my bike to my 6'5" uh, son, and a couple weeks later on Mother's Day, I really want to ride my bike. So we have an emergency family meeting, and Jackie, my kids don't think I should ride my bike because they don't want me to fall and get hurt,
Right.
and they're actually almost tearful. They're very afraid. But Jackie decides that we can try. So she tells my 6'5" football player son, Zach, you run alongside on the left. Zeb, 13-year-old, also, plenty strong. You jog alongside on the right, and she'll follow. We all get in position, and I get on that bike, and I bike around the block. And that big 16-year-old boy, he's crying. And the 13-year-old, she's crying, and Jackie's crying. And I can't tell that story without crying. Because you see, that is when I understood that who knows how much recovery might be possible. And after that, I rode my bike a little every day. And in October, Jackie signed me up for the Courage Ride, 18.5 miles. And when I finished that ride, we're all crying. My kids are crying, Jackie's crying, and I'm crying. And it fundamentally changes the way I understand disease and health, the way I practice medicine, and the focus of my research. I've made it my mission to let the world know that you can have hope, that even if you feel like you have a devastating disease and your doctors are telling you that there is no recovery that is possible, life exists because of self-correcting biochemistry. Healing is possible. And forgive me, I gotta wipe my nose. I always cry when I talk about that.
Thank you, Terry. That was so beautiful. And I'm sure we don't have a dry eye watching us. You said self-correcting biochemistry. So I want to dig into that. And I know mitochondria are
Yes.
the crux of this. So they are drivers of disability, and you can self-correct. So tell me more about this self-correcting biochemistry. What does that mean?
In our cells, every second, there are a million biochemical reactions that happen in a very controlled fashion that we have ranges in self-correcting so that your potassium doesn't get too high, your sodium doesn't get too high, your calcium doesn't get too high. It's a very complex network. So we have, all of us, no doubt remember when we were children, we skinned our knees all the time. We cut ourselves, and we can very rapidly heal when we are young. As we get older, that self-correcting healing slows down. The reason it slows is we have such toxic lifestyles. We
Oh.
have such terrible nutrition. We have such poor sleep. We have such toxic relationships. And if we can, bit by bit, take all of those environmental factors and move them bit by bit away from a toxic environment, a toxic disease promoting activities to more health promoting activities, you'll restore that resilience, that biochemical resilience. Now, I still can't be 18, but what's interesting, Laura, is so I have a progressive neurological disorder, neurodegenerative disorder. We know that people in my disease state, we age far more rapidly than the general public, 10 to 20 years.
Mhm.
So, and I've had secondary progressive MS for since I was 45, so 22 years. So we could project, and I'm 67, that my biologic age should be around 87.
Mhm.
And there was a time when I looked 20 years older than my stated age. But I've since done, some biological age markers, and I'm 15 years biologically younger than my chronologic age. And that's because
Again,
I
say that
worked,
again. Say that
I
again.
am
This is
I'm
profound. Say that again.
I am 15 years younger biologically than my chronologic age.
That sounds impossible because you should be 20 years older than your
Older.
biological.
Correct, correct.
So how did you do it? So I know that it's possible to restore, as you just said, as you just
Absolutely.
illustrated in your incredible story of being
So
able to ride that bike. So how
well,
did you?
let's go through the sequence of the things that I did. I added exercise, and I knew from diagnosis exercise would be key. So I was always absolutely diligent on exercise. Then I
Well,
adapted
let
the
me ask
paleo.
you this. Let me ask you this. Sorry to interrupt, but how so and you're in a reclining chair for 4 years. I would think your muscles atrophied, your bones.
Oh yeah, so
So what,
absolutely, my bones were in terrible shape.
so how
My
did you
muscles were.
exercise? Yeah.
So I put it in an endless pool, and so when I couldn't run anymore, I swam. I swam in really cold water. I did not heat my pool, so it'd be like 55 degrees.
Mhm.
So I was doing Wim Hof for a
Mhm.
long time. And when I couldn't swim, then I did a water aerobics. And it was 45 minutes, then 35, then 25, then 20, then 10.
Mhm.
And that's where I was at the
Okay.
at the lowest point.
Mhm.
And I adapted the paleo diet actually the year before I got into the wheelchair. And I think that probably slowed things. I added supplements for my mitochondria. That clearly was very helpful because if I missed my supplements, I could not function at all.
What
Uh,
supplement? Tell our audience what
so, yeah,
help.
creatine, carnitine, lipoic acid, coenzyme Q, B vitamins. Now,
Mhm.
gradually, I would add more things. And so I have a much more complicated regimen that I take now. And I still find now that I do have more energy when I'm taking my complicated mitochondrial cocktail. And then I add electrical stimulation of muscles. And again, started out 10 minutes a day. Then I got to 10 minutes twice a day, then 15 twice a day, then 20 twice a day, then 30 twice a day. Then,
Question on the electrostimulation. Were you able to do this at home? Did you have a device
yeah.
at home or did you
So
go?
I went to clinic
Mhm.
uh, 3 times a week for 4 years. And I had a device at home as well.
Okay, great. So I'm sure you teach all of this in your
We teach
programs and
we Yep,
protocols. You show
we
people how
we
to do this.
We teach people how to do this. And you have to do this at a pace that allows for recovery. If you do it too fast, you lose ground. So you have to work very, very closely. And the physical therapist that I worked with treated athletes. And keep in mind, I was a martial artist, sort of a mixed martial arts kick 'em up sort of girl before medical school. So I gave concussions and had a few. Once I hit medical school, I realized, I should not be doing that anymore. Um, but the beauty of having been an athlete was I found a PT who treated athletes, who treated me like an athlete, and I understood that you train for a long time. That I'm sure that was very helpful in the willingness to do e-stim, and I pushed e-stim as hard as I could with my physical therapist's approval.
Tell us what e-stim is, because I know there's people
Oh,
listening.
electrical stimulation of muscles. It's different from TENS. It's a different set of frequencies. You put the electrodes over the motor nerves to induce muscle contraction, and you contract your muscles, and then you have electrically driven contraction on top of that. And so that makes nerve growth factors in your brain. And let me tell you, I could tell my brain really loves electrical stimulation of muscles. In fact, I still do a couple hours of electrical stimulation of muscles every day just because my brain loves electrical stimulation of muscles
Do you
so
just
much.
do it while you're going about your day doing other things? Do you just hook
Yes.
yourself up and keep moving?
Hook myself up and I'll do isometric muscle contractions. So you still want to contract your muscles volitionally. So I initiate the muscle contraction on top of the electrically driven muscle contraction. That works my muscles, that works the mitochondria in my muscles, that lowers my inflammation, and the muscles are endocrine glands. They really improve your insulin sensitivity, improve the health of your metabolic, your blood sugar control, improve the health of your blood lipids as well. So uh, and now, and I've published research about this. Now, other researchers are also agreeing with me that electrical stimulation of muscles is a wonderful rehabilitation tool for people who have a spinal cord injury that's either complete, as in paralyzed, or incomplete, as in those who have a neuroimmune condition. And so, in my practice, we often use electrical stimulation of muscles to facilitate recovery of function. Then I got into cold plunges, ice baths. As I recovered, I could get into heat stress, heat, red light, low-level laser therapy, saunas, saunas to 160 degrees, which I now
Wow.
tolerate and enjoy. And when I was ill with my MS, I could not tolerate a heat at all. It would um, cause cause me to be almost blind, actually. So I had very, very, very poor heat tolerance. But now I'm fine. I can do saunas to 160. I can take hot tubs. That's no problem whatsoever.
And I
Uh,
think the key here is that you've worked and worked and worked and worked at
I
it.
did. I made all these changes gradually at a pace that my body could tolerate, and I would add a new hormetic challenge, sort of one at a time.
Mhm.
So we added the exercise in e-stim, and worked closely with my physical therapist to add that at a pace that he was closely supervising, mind you, very closely supervising, because he knew what he was doing was radical. It was new. At first, he said no. I had to spend a fair amount of time convincing him to let me try, and he knew that he was potentially hurting me. So he took a big risk in letting me go down this path, and he wanted to keep a very close eye on what I was doing.
Yeah.
So as that turned out really, really well, I thought, I wonder if I could take a sauna again. So I went to a local gym, tried out a sauna, and I was stunned. Like, I can see, I feel great, I have plenty of energy. The sauna's not bothering me, so I bought a sauna and I started doing saunas. And I'm still swimming in my pool's really cold during the winter. It's warm during the summer, and I'm thinking, well, I could sort of explore this ice plunge kind of thing. So now I'm getting some heat stress, some cold stress.
So I
I
want to I want to unpack here just for our audience who might be new to mitochondria. What Dr. Wahls is talking about is hormetic stress, and hormesis is very healthy level of stress for your mitochondria and your cells in your body. However, if you go too fast, too much too fast, you can actually go backwards in your progress.
Absolutely.
So you bring one hormetic stressor in at a time. So things like breathing, exercise, cold plunging, red light, sauna, even some nutrients. And so I want to invite everyone to be be gracious and careful with your body, depending on the level of your chronic health condition. And you'll be learning so much on this summit about how to incorporate all of these things. But this is hormetic stress in action. This is how you brought back your cellular health. As you say, this is how your self-correcting biochemistry was stimulated by this.
And keep in mind, you do one thing at a time at a pace that you can tolerate. You have your mild to moderate stress. Then you have to have sufficient recovery to let your cells come in, fix all the damage that happened to a little bit stronger function for that cell, and then you can give yourself stress again.
Yes.
And so my physical therapist was very, very clear about the risk I was taking, doing the E-stem and the exercise. It would have to, and he was going to take my device away from me if I didn't keep coming to see him and follow the instructions.
So be coachable is the lesson here.
Yeah,
Be coachable.
be coachable, listen, and if things aren't going well, you stop and recover.
Yes. So what you're sharing with us is it is 100% possible to restore mitochondrial health. It is 100% possible to bring back your health. It does take a level of commitment and dedication, accountability, and allowing others to guide you, and being curious and inquisitive and researching and trial and error. I mean, this isn't that whole concept of you lived into it, you get to live out of it. And here you are. And I mean, I've had the pleasure of being in person with you multiple times, and meeting up with you at conferences and events, and no one would ever know that you ever spent 4 years in a chair.
Unable to sit up.
No, and no one would ever know. I would never know that. I'm dumbfounded every time that I see you in person. So we did touch on quickly.
One more thing I want to share.
Yeah.
Yesterday I jogged on my treadmill 20 minutes.
Oh my gosh. I feel like you're just getting stronger and stronger and better every time I talk to you.
Well, my hair's getting grayer though.
Oh, you haven't figured that one out yet, huh? When you do, let me know.
Well, I had, when I ran my first marathon, I said I want to be the gray-haired grandmother passing the whippersnappers. And I thought I was going to have to give that up. I may not have to give that up. We'll see.
Yeah, you might just do it.
Yeah.
I think anything that Dr. Terry Wahls puts her mind to is possible. And if not, you'll figure out a way to make it happen. So we did touch on what the leading decline of mitochondria effectiveness is and what's causing these problems. And we touched on toxins, and I wanted to have you explore that a little bit deeper before we adjourn. But in my work with people, one of the foundational things we do is prepare people's bodies to be able to remove toxins, because toxins are drivers of disease.
Mm-hmm.
And once you can get rid of toxins, your cells, your body can regenerate. So let's talk a little bit about toxins. What are the leading toxins and drivers of this mitochondrial decline?
So for MS, often lead, mercury, arsenic, cadmium, the heavy metals are a big driver. You could also have some biotoxins. mold could do that. And then our food supply, we have so many foods that have glyphosate in the food, the grain, legumes. As part of the farming practice, glyphosate is put on the food crop, grains to have all of the grain peak at the same stage, which improves the efficiency of the harvest. Therefore, unless you've buying things that are certified organic, you've got a large glyphosate load. Uh, and there's so much pesticides, herbicides in our food supply. So we, in all those compounds that I just went through, will interfere with the biochemistry of the electron transport chain, which make your mitochondria less efficient, which then make your cells less efficient, which then set you up for immune dysfunction, hormone dysfunction, insulin resistance, metabolic syndrome, anxiety, depression. And so, the first step is clean up your diet as thoroughly as you can. Uh, go as organic as your budget will allow, and think about a filtration system for your air and your water. Now, having said all of that, I do want your audience to know that when I was working primarily at the Veteran Affairs Hospital, we created a therapeutic lifestyle clinic where we saw the sickest of the sick. Most of those folks were living on food stamps. They had been unable to work, usually for years, because of their disability. And I'm teaching them how to basically do the Wahls protocol, the diet and lifestyle that I use for my recovery. And they're not buying organic foods. They're just getting their food from local small grocery stores, quick trips in Littletown, Iowa, Littletown, Illinois, Littletown, Missouri. And we saw dramatic results. Now, you'll recover more quickly and more easily if you can go organic. You can do those things.
Yeah.
But even if all you can do is just do what you can afford, given your circumstances, I predict you'll be quite pleased with the progress you can make.
I'm so glad you shared that because, the cost of functional integrative medicine, it's a higher standard of care than Western medicine. It is not covered by insurance in most cases. The supplements are an investment. The food is an investment. And it's so fantastic to hear that you have seen people improve and get better with the resources that they have, with what they can achieve.
Dramatic.
Yes.
Correct.
Dramatic. Wow.
They could have dramatic. And the other thing that was really lovely, the VA has electronic medical records, so we could see what happened to their blood pressure, what happened to their blood sugars, what happened to their medication list, what happened to the hemoglobin A1C. And so I would have to go in and make reports to the executive team every 3 months. And it was very impressive that narcotic use was down, blood pressure medication use was down, blood sugar medication use was down, but the A1Cs were better. The lipids were better. And I would go to the pain clinic, specialty medicine, and said, "Give me your most difficult cases. I'm not gonna be out using drugs. I may be reducing their medications so we don't cause hypoglycemia and hypotension. Got a few, had success, then got a few more, then we had a deluge. And so I kept having to reimagine how I ran my clinic to accommodate the demand. So we quickly went from small group to large group to classes. And then VA central office came out to see me, and I thought, dear God, I'm in trouble now. But they were actually very impressed and took many of the concepts that I was teaching and added that to the whole health clinic.
So good, so good. Well, what I'm hearing from all this conversation too is that even if you don't have MS or another neurodegenerative disorder, this is going to help. It's going to help your energy. It's going to help if you have autoimmune conditions. It's going to help brain fogginess. It's going to help. I mean, your
Correct.
protocol helps no matter who you are. You want to become superhuman, you're already doing great, and you want to get better, do the Wahls protocol.
Yeah, what we saw is, because people could come with chronic pain, with autoimmune issues, a wide variety of medical problems would get sent to us. But the common symptoms were pain, fatigue, brain fog, and then nearly all of the men had low libido, erectile dysfunction. Nearly everyone had obesity. And in the first 3 months, blood pressure is better, blood sugars are usually improving, medication, and the guys are come back and say, "Hey doc, you didn't tell me. You didn't tell me that things would get better with the girl. That my love life is back."
Terry, you had a major marketing mistake. You should have just led with that.
So the men, so in our group classes, the more senior guys would be sort of, letting the newbies know that this was definitely a thing that they could look forward to. And then the ladies, also really quite interesting. They're really pumped because they're losing weight without being hungry.
Yeah.
And when you talk with them, they're often also acknowledging that their libido has improved. And the men often lost weight without being hungry. And so classically, men are much more interested in performance and women are more interested in appearance. Now,
Yes.
that's not universal, but it was a
Common.
very common observation.
So good, so good. Well, you do have some research studies going on right now that people can
Yes.
get into. So tell us about that. How do you get
So
connected?
we are running a study comparing a ketogenic diet, paleo diet to usual diet for people with relapsing, remitting multiple sclerosis between the ages of 18 and 70. You would come to Iowa at month 0, month 3, month 24. We get measures of some survey measures of mood, fatigue, quality of life. And then we have clinical measures of walking, hand, vision function. And then the thing that I think will be most interesting in the study is we're getting research MRIs of the brain volume at month 0 and month 24 because, Laura, people with relapsing remitting MS, as a group, our brains are shrinking 3 times as fast as happens in healthy controls.
Wow.
And that's why we have much higher rates of early job loss, cognitive decline, early frailty, and early nursing home care.
And relationship decline.
And
Yeah.
everything goes to shit,
Yeah.
really.
So they can get, how do they get a hold of
Well,
you?
I want to explain that in my clinical experience, brain fog resolves. We're very optimistic that we can get brain volume loss to healthy aging. Now, sign up for this. Go to terrywahls.com, Terry, Wahls, Wahls.com. There's a gold bar across the top. And you can click there, take the survey, answer a few questions, and then we can begin the process of getting you enrolled. Even if you don't have relapse or remitting MS, if you have progressive MS, complete the survey because we are writing grants to add progressive MS studies.
Oh, wonderful. Wonderful. And I know you're really active on Instagram. I follow you. You really open up your life and show what you're eating, what you're doing, how you're exercising, all the healthy things that you do. So how do they find you there?
So that's Dr. Terry Wahls, Drterry, Wahls, Wahls.
Great. It's been an absolute pleasure. It always is a pleasure to be in your company. Really, you are one of my heroes. I will also tell you, because of you, I'm eating liver. I found a
It's
way.
quite delicious if we know how to make it.
Well, I found a way to do it. I found a company that mixes ground beef with liver.
Oh yeah,
So
that works very well.
Yes. So then I just make, whatever out of it, saute it up, make burgers, put it on salads, and I'm getting my liver, and it's a little bit hidden, and it's actually it's more of a psychological thing. It tastes good, but it's a mental thing.
Well, you'll have to come to my house so we can show you how delicious liver can be.
I know. I would love that. So next time I'm in Iowa.
Okay, that's a bargain.
Sounds good. Well, thank you so much for being here and sharing your wisdom and being such an inspiration for our audience.
Much love to you and your family.
Take good care now. Bye.
Bye-bye.